really broad question, but just go for it as much as you want. But how was the Bible put together? Because I've had people kind of say about the Constantine. I've even heard that it's like King James, he put it all together, and like there's a lot of different ideas out there about. How
I remember I was at a party and I told a guy I was doing a PhD in the Bible, and he said, I thought the Dead Sea Scrolls disproved all that stuff. I go, well, man, I think I don't think you know what the Bible is, or what the Dead Sea Scrolls are.
Yeah.
Well, basically for the New Testament, it goes like this. Okay, so Jesus and then the early church, their Bible is pretty much the Hebrew Bible, or what we call the Old Testament.
Yeah.
So the Old Testament in Hebrew, but then the Old Testament also gets translated into Greek.
Yeah.
Okay, and we generally call that the Septuagint.
Yeah.
So as Christianity spreads out of Judea and into places like Syria, Turkey, Greece, Italy, North Africa, generally the Bible that people are using is the Greek Old Testament, or the Septuagint. At the same time, Christians develop their own very rich and active literary culture. I mean, they write letters to each other. They share all sorts of communications.
Yeah.
And that's where you get Paul writing his letters, or you get the letter of James, or the letters of Peter and the letters of John. So you get Christians writing to each other. But then around the same time that the first generation is dying off and Jesus is not returned yet, people are beginning to write a biography of Jesus. Now, we're fairly confident the first one to be written was the Gospel of Mark, short, sharp, sweet, to the point, which then provided something of a template that was followed by Matthew and Luke, and then John, who I think may know of Mark, he may know of Luke. He seems to do his own sort of, independent thing.
Yeah.
So you get these Gospels written from about 70 to about 100 AD. And then you get a few other things around the same time. You get the revelation of John. What happens very quickly is people collect the four Gospels, and they kind of become like a book in their own right.
Yep.
Paul's letters seem to become a bit of a compilation, and then there's a few other things floating around to, like the Book of Acts combined with what we call the Catholic or the general epistles.
Yeah.
Certainly by the time you get to the end of the 2nd century, it's very clear that the four Gospels, Paul's letters plus Hebrews, 1 John and 1 Peter, they seem to be very widely acknowledged. Everyone's saying, these are basically the books that kind of sum up what our religion is about.
Yeah, okay.
Sum up what we believe in Jesus. Yep. These are the ones we tend to use in our worship when we meet. And if you go from Spain to Syria, and if you have a Gospel of Matthew with you, the odds are people are going to know what you're talking about. So if you went from Syria to Spain and said, hey, have you heard about the Gospel of Matthew? They'd say, oh, like totally. Yeah. It's like my favoriteest gospel ever. You would find that going on. And then there's a few other writings where people kind of look at the book of Revelation and like many of us go, well, gosh, that's a bit weird, isn't it? I mean, what's going on there? But generally, I mean, despite some questions people had, the book of Revelation sort of was widely regarded. And then there's a few other books that people thought were really good and thought maybe should be in the biblical canon or the list of official Christian literature, like First Clement. Clement was a Christian leader at the end of the 1st century. He wrote some letters from Rome, a letter from Rome to the church in Corinth. There was a writing called the Didache, which is like a discipleship manual that came out of Syria. An ex-slave wrote a very big work called The Shepherd of Hermas, which is based on revelations or prophecy in the early 2nd century. And some people thought, hey, these writings are pretty cool too. But generally, writings were included if they were written by an apostle, an apostolic associate, if they accorded with the apostolic faith of the church, and if they met with wide consensus. Yeah. And eventually people start making lists of which books they think are the best. And certainly by the late 3rd, early 4th century, it seems to have been crystallized what we call the New Testament.